Hey! Oh, man.
Welcome to episode 10 of The Right Reasons, everybody.
This is going to be a doozy.
It is. It's also about 80 degrees in our apartment because we live in Manhattan and it's a heat wave right now.
We do. For anybody on the East Coast, what is the date today? July 23rd. It is hot as fuck.
Hot as fuck.
Yeah.
So we're trying to stay cool, get the air conditioner running extra. We're just going to make this thing work. So welcome to the episode.
We're so happy you're here.
Yeah, good episode last night. Good episode. If you're a podcast listener, thank you so much for listening. We appreciate you. You are amazing. You've been getting our podcast version of this trending on iTunes, the last couple of weeks? It's been amazing.
So we got this email from this company that I didn't even know existed called Chartable, and I thought it was spam. I was like, who's this Chartable? I don't need another ad for something.
Yeah.
And it was like, hey, congratulations, your podcast is charting. And what that means is because you guys are downloading the episodes, listening to the episodes, rating, reviewing, Apple is basically saying, hey, people like this shit. More people want to hear it, so push it up. And that's all because of you guys.
Yeah.
Like, we show up here every week to do what we do, but if you're not listening and engaging and sharing and watching and reviewing and commenting and all of the things, it doesn't do anything. And so we're so freaking grateful to you guys. And on YouTube, holy shit, YouTubers, you helped us cross. We're almost at 2,000 views for our last week's episode, which
organically.
is
No
insane.
Advertising, nothing.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. That's surprisingly hard to do. You'd think it'd be easy. It's not.
I know. So we're just so unbelievably grateful. And for those of you who have been reaching out via DM, sharing your stories, just thank you. Thank you for being a part of this with us. And it makes it really fun to do. If we were just talking to ourselves, it'd be really sad.
It would be a little sad. So we've got a doozies of an episode. A doozy of an episode.
A doozies. I'm going to put my hair up because it's already hot.
I was going to put my hair up too, but it's as far as I can go here.
Yeah, it's already up. Kind of. As we're getting ready to dive in, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, do us a giant, giant favor and please click the thumbs up button right underneath the video. That helps other people find it. It makes all of the difference. And if you're here with us, comment along. We want to be in conversation with you. So, Nidra, so good to see you. Good morning. Let's celebrate the cancellation of the Luke P show. Yeah.
Indeed.
And Jenna says that she was in New York this weekend and could not agree more. Yeah, it's hot.
That was a rough weekend to be here, Jenna. Rough.
It is hot.
All right, so...
Are we ready?
Sure. I mean, let's get into it.
So, let's just do overall takeaways first, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the episode.
Sounds good.
What was your overall
takeaway? The whole episode?
The whole episode.
I was a little bummed we didn't get to see more of the actual show itself. Like
in
Hannah.
Greece?
Yeah, exactly. We're still left with...
Like non-mental all content?
Yeah, exactly. At first I was a little bit bummed around that. Like, they cut that out pretty quickly. It's a 2-hour show on TV, and the first, 20 minutes was just the episode that we wanted to see, and then cut to mental afterwards, right? It's pretty fast.
Yeah, it was fast.
However, though, about halfway through the Mentel All segment, I was pretty happy we got the amount of time that we had for it, which was really, really nice. Still a little uncertain as to how they're going to handle 3 dudes for the final 3 now, I guess. Or are they going to eliminate 1 at a rose ceremony and then go into the final 2 for the actual,
Yeah, they'll do that. We'll see the end of that rose ceremony probably at the beginning of the first night's finale, Monday. Okay. And then the rest of it will be the 2 guys.
Okay. But the rest of it I thought was really, really good. I thought they did a decent... civil job, actually, for a Mentel All. I was thinking about the last Mentel All that I watched, which was Becca something last name. I can't do it. I still can't.
Kufrin.
Kufrin? Does it look like Kufrin?
It looks like Kufrin.
Or like Karafa. I want to make a hard UR sound. Anyway, whatever.
My hair is driving me nuts.
I feel like that Mentel All was super contentious. Colton was yelling at everybody. There was a bunch of fingers being pointed at each other. in this, you saw the guys all as one very united group against one person, which has kind of been the MO for the entire season. It was actually kind of a nice callback in that way to everyone just hating Luke and uniting around him, and it shows the power, I guess, of having someone to dislike as a group in terms of getting everyone on the same page. But I think the guys did a good job, and I think Chris did a good job, and I'm actually mostly impressed with Hannah. What do you think?
Overall, yes. I'm really excited to get into the details.
Yeah.
I agree with Brandon in our chat right now. Her moving the podium was worth the entire episode.
100%.
Yeah. I mean, that
100%.
moment, the way that Hannah showed up both in the Grease segment of the episode and the studio portion, I thought was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
She has... Well, we'll get into what she said. So, overall, I give it an A-. I think that it was one of the better men tell-alls that I've seen. And this is totally subjective, right? Because, like, for some people, I'm sure, some people really love the drama. Like, Ari's season, you couldn't even hear. The women tell-all was
just shouting.
Yelling. It was just yelling.
I forgot about how bad that was.
And it was like, I can't even take notes on this. Like, It was so outrageous. This one, like you said, it was civilized. I thought that Chris Harrison did a pretty good job with Luke. There were certain things that I would have done differently, but that's me as a therapist being able to, like, hear certain things in the way that, you know, he talks.
Yeah.
But, you know, Chris Harrison, who can be a little more on the conservative side when it comes to, like, pushing with certain things, I thought that he actually pushed on some things that were good and important.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was all pretty... I think A- is good. A- is good. I agree with that.
Like, high 80s, low 90s.
Yeah.
Would be my overall rating.
I'd say that. All right. Well,
so let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
So we start right in the studio for Men Tell All, and Chris right away acknowledges it's going to be a very different version of Men Tell All. And he says, we usually start the tell all with all the guys out here recapping the season, but tonight we're picking up right where we left off in Greece. So we saw this in the preview last week, Luke coming back. What we didn't know was that the guys did not know that he was gone. So they were expecting him to come in. Mm-hmm. And so when he comes in, Hannah is the only one that is confused. So what I thought was really interesting about this was that Hannah says she loves all of them in different ways. And she says that she has to break up with someone who she cares for and who she knows cares for her. This, I think, would be the hardest rose ceremony if I were Bachelorette, because regardless of the physical intimacy factor, like, forget the physical side, after you have that time with the person off camera, you build a bond that's different than the people who you've only had time with on camera. I'm guessing, based on everything I've heard.
I mean, yeah.
So I feel like between meeting the family and then having that time together, this would be the hardest one, obviously aside from, like, the final thing. But even then, it's different because you've already made your decision. I don't know. Yeah. This one just seems hard, man.
Well, yeah, I think for me, it'd almost be the one before this. We have to cut down to 4 because then it's like, then it gets really serious. I think
but usually that's cutting down to 3.
Oh, that's true.
That's what I'm saying.
I feel like the decision before this... so we're talking about the same thing outside of the context of this particular season.
Correct.
Yeah, I agree with you. It'd be hard to separate at this point because now you can't hide behind, like, well, this person seemed fun, so I was bringing them along for a while. Now it's like emotions are ingrained. There's a lot more meaning behind the decisions. Yeah, I think that would be really, really difficult. So we get to see the guys, you know, very traditional, like, start where the guys all talk about how much they care about Hannah, how much they're all in love, and, you know, they all kind of have their own little thing. Jed still seems a little hesitant at this point. You know, he comes out and Chris is like, hey, how you doing? And he's like, well, I'm okay, I guess. I'm ready. I guess.
No, he says, Jed?
He seemed a little hesitant going into it.
He says that he had questions, but that he got answers to his questions answered.
Okay, he wasn't as giddy as Tyler and Peter. How about that?
True.
Maybe it's that brown suit. He was feeling a little bad about it.
Well, because he looked like a piece of poop.
About. It's not a great suit. It's not a pink salmon suit. So what are you gonna do? So really quickly, just the topic of everything. Luke talks about coming back. They show him coming back. First of all, I think it's sloppy of production to allow this to happen at this point. It's the second time he's been kicked off the show. He's clearly disregarding everything that Hannah said, and he makes everything about himself. It's all about how he feels in the bus coming back with the ring, and it's completely disregarding her boundaries. He says, she hasn't told me she loves me, but I know that she does. I mean, at this point, you've got to wonder what the difference is when people got really, really upset around Lincoln being around Becca in the last season of The Bachelorette, to this now production allowing someone who has shown clear disregard for someone's personal boundaries repeatedly. The first time I almost give it a pass, like, well, maybe it's a crazy fluke of the show, but this time it's a little, I point the finger at them and call bad.
So I agree and disagree.
All right.
I think that, quote unquote, allowing somebody to come back is very typical of the show. That's not something that's like outrageous or that we haven't seen before. What I didn't like about how they handled this is that someone knew that he was coming back into the rose ceremony. So when Hannah walked in to the rose ceremony and he's standing there, that was on purpose. And that, to me, is to throw Hannah off of her game.
Like, do you think that by now she's had enough and can kind of get, like, an easier...
Right.
Like, come on.
So, to me, that was the move that I was like, that's not cool. Like, if he was going to bomb the rose ceremony, even, like, walk in while it's happening. But even that would have been still manipulative, but, like, a little bit better. The fact that he was just standing there and the guys didn't know that he was not supposed to be there put Hannah in a very weird position. Now, she handled it beautifully, I loved this whole interaction. But like you were saying, this was so indicative. Luke was so Luke. I mean, in the car, when he's there, and you were talking about him saying, I, she doesn't realize I still love her. I'm not through. This isn't over for me. I couldn't go home until talking with her again, sharing my heart, getting things off my chest. I know she loves me. I believe she's making a big mistake. None of it is her.
This is the same thought process as someone who's banging on the door of a restaurant that's closed, angry that they can't get the food they want. The restaurant's closed. You can't be served. Just go. All you're doing is frustrating yourself by continuing this. And so when he finally gets out, you're right, he is so typical Luke in this. It comes time for her to, try to send him home for the third time, and she just says, please leave. And he will not even respect that.
So this, though, was my favorite, is she's like, why are you here? That's the first thing that she says to him. And he says, I want to talk to you. And she just says, no. And then we have the audience at Men Tell All clapping in the background. So we hear this, like, overarching clapping, which is totally what all of us were feeling last week when she sent him home. I felt like we got to actually hear all of us at home being like, woo! Yay! And
he keeps doing the thing where he talks about clarity.
He says, I'm going to stand here all day. And she says, no, you're fucking not. And she says, I'm about to go psycho, so please leave. He says, I need clarity right now. And she says, I have clarity. This is not about you. He says, I understand that, but I'm not leaving till I have closure. And then she says one of my favorite lines of the episode, because this was, to me, her truly understanding and expressing that she knows what he does now. She said, I'm not going to let you rewrite what you said the other night.
I enjoyed that. I enjoyed that so much I didn't even write it down. I was like, fuck yeah, Hannah, you tell him. That's what's up. So, my favorite thing, honestly, of the entire episode, even into the Men Tell All, my favorite thing is Jed's expression when they hear that Hannah had already sent him home. Because the guys, at this point, they don't know yet. And so when they find out, Jed's face, his expression, was the one that I would make as a kid when I found out school was closed and it was a snow day. It was the same, like, oh my god, I don't have to go to school? This is amazing! That's the way Jed reacted to that, and it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because it's something that it was this little bit of cathartic enjoyment that I didn't think we'd get, is seeing how happy the guys were that were remaining, and it was so good. It was so good.
Like, if there was
so
one
good.
positive of having the whole situation happen where that Hannah didn't know that he was going to be there, it was getting to see the guy's reactions, realizing that he had already been sent home.
Yeah.
And they all come to bat for her. So we go to commercial. Tyler kind of looks like he wants to kick Luke's ass and go fuck Hannah all at the same time. He is like so turned on by her assertiveness, but also he's like, I need to protect her. Oh, she's so hot. I need to protect her. Oh my God, this is so hot.
He was watching her to see if she was going to be like you and me in the bathroom right now, or I give you permission to stomp this dude. He was waiting for something from her either way.
It was just this incredible face between like, I'm going to beat someone and protect you, and also I'm going to fuck the shit out of you right now, consensually.
Peter was also very into the assertiveness.
They all were. I think Jed was almost like more just excited that Luke was gone. Like he was just stuck in that. Yeah. But Peter and Tyler were like, this is hot.
Yeah, they were into it.
So
that's kind of it. I mean,
Chris Harrison then walks in. He is silent, does not say anything. Mm-hmm. And then Luke says, I still know for a fact you still have feelings for me. I was 100% misunderstood. And then she says, you were not misunderstood. There's no confusion. And then she explains to all of the guys what happened. And he leaves. Chris Harrison does something like, do you want him to go? This is up to you. And she's like, yeah. And then she says, what the fuck? Dude, I fucking hate that guy. And then Chris tells her that he had a ring in his pocket. She is absolutely baffled.
Yeah, she is stunned.
The guys are unbelievably proud of her. It's adorable. It seems like the rose ceremony is about to start. They cut to studio, and he says, we'll find out what happens next week.
All right.
Let's start the men tell all. So I have a question for you guys listening and watching. I believe that this is the first men tell all where we have not had the third place person in that seat that Mike was sitting in. So typically,
like pole position, like right there.
Yeah. Remember on for Becca, it was Jason.
Oh
was in that seat.
Oh, Jason.
Yeah, it was Jason. Like it's typically for Ben Higgins, it was Kayla. Like. It's typically that third person that's still like, I'm still really heartbroken because it was more recent for me and more serious than all of you guys. And we didn't have that. Can you guys who are watching this on YouTube, can you let me know if that's accurate? Is this the first time that we have not had that third person and that there are 3 guys left in the running during Men Tell All?
My question, though, is regardless of actual positioning based on time going home to the show, do you think that Mike still serves that purpose of, like, the closest guy, too?
Well, yeah, because he was, because the only other guy after him was Luke.
Well, I think also in an emotional connection way. Because usually, like, the other people, there's been, like, that connection, and I think that Mike served that purpose additionally because they had such a strong thing going until he went home. There was no clear indicator as to why it didn't work out.
The chemistry was just not there.
Right, but I think he still served the purpose, but I understand there being, I don't think it's as far as I've seen, this is the first time it's happened.
Well, yeah.
Well, yeah, I've only watched a couple seasons of The Bachelorette. Whatever.
Yes. So, we go to Men Tell All, and Luke P. comes out for his interview.
So, I would like to actually, I don't want to rewatch it, but I want someone else to tell me how many times Luke says the word clear or clarity over his time in Men Tell All. Because I think it's upwards of 20 times. Easily.
Okay, our listeners agree with me. This is a first. So, yes.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Okay, I thought so. Woo! I just wanted to make sure before I was like, this is a Bachelor first. And then I had like 50 people being like, no, it's not!
I don't know. Chris Harrison always says it's, a first in some reason. Every single time it's like, first time this has happened or never before seen. And it's always like slight variations of something you've seen before, but with like a nuance so they can say that.
Yeah. Oh, Brandon, you're right. Okay, so in Colton's, Kaylin was the last one there. Because of the
weirdness.
Jumping,
Yeah.
okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Interesting. So Colton in this season, so it's the 2 latest seasons. Huh. All right. Okay.
Dramatic.
So Luke comes out. There's very few claps. It is, like, incredibly awkward to the point that Chris Harrison actually, like, points it out.
There's a lot of studio silence during Men Tell All this time. A lot of studio silence. So he comes out. He talks about clarity and closure, which is just reiterating that he doesn't respect Hannah at all because it's all about him. She said no. It doesn't matter what he thinks at all. She said no 3 times and sent him home 3 times. Yeah. So who fucking cares, man? Your opinion means nothing.
Yep. And he says that, like, he wants a say or something, and Chris corrects him. And this was the first moment where I was like, oh, Chris Harrison is actually, like, on this. So Chris says, well, you had your say and it went poorly. So you wanted another say, right? About coming back.
That was good.
So then the conversation between them starts. And this was really difficult for me to watch. Luke continued to contradict himself. He continued to avoid, and I found it very interesting. So I'm sure you guys noticed a lot more downtime and silence on this during this interview.
Yeah, Hallie did.
Yeah, see, okay, Hallie said a lot of silence from Luke too. I thought my TV was broken. Yeah, so it's not common that the editing of the show will actually show those pauses, right? Like, even if somebody does pause, they'll edit it in a way where it cuts the audience and then cuts back, so you don't realize they took 5 minutes to answer. You get to, like, just see it in very quick bits. And Luke had to think so hard about his answers. And part of that, I'm sure, is watching back the season. There were probably things that he said very quickly that he then, moving forward, was like, okay, I want to be sure that I say this in the best way possible. Yeah. So I think that part of it was well-intended for him to, like, think through a response. He was also probably coached by somebody on how to respond to some of the questions that he was going to get asked. But most of it, again, not diagnosing. Okay, like, asterisk here, not diagnosing. Luke Parker is not my client. Watching him, though, it felt as though he was trying to figure out which emotion was appropriate to have with his verbal reaction.
Like, he was assembling the puzzle pieces to whatever he was going to say each time based on what the question or who was saying it was?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Like, who am I appealing to right now? Right. To come across as the good guy here, or at least not the bad guy.
And so there's no problem with taking your time to answer a question.
No, in fact.
Because this is a normal, if I'm thinking about an answer, if someone asks me a question, that's a hard question, right? This is the normal amount of time I think it's appropriate to wait. You know, now that I've thought about it, I really want to say something.
Yes.
He was silent in studio for upwards of 30 seconds at a time. That's a long time.
Was it 30?
I believe one of them gets up to about 30 seconds, maybe a little bit longer. Because it cuts to the audience, it cuts to the silent, it cuts a couple different times to do at the camera angles. Either way, he goes silent for so long and sort of looks down in this weird way where he's formulating the response. That's such a long time to form a response. I don't trust what he's going to say because it seems planned and inauthentic.
That's the thing. Is it,
right.
Like you said, it is totally okay to pause and think about it.
100%.
I've done that many times. In fact, when we work with couples together, we encourage that. Like, wait, listen to what the question is. Think about your response. Make sure that you're saying it in a way. Like, that's totally cool. But it was like a robot, and I'm not saying that he is robotic or doesn't have emotion. Again, I'm not diagnosing him at all. But what it appeared as though watching was like he would put down his head, okay, I'm supposed to feel sadness for how I treated, and I need to be remorseful, but I also want to stand by what I did, so I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
Okay, what I blah, 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 and then he'd, like, go into it.
So, the interesting thing that I find about him when he uses the words clarity and clear a lot in this episode.
And closure.
Clarity,
so, clear, closure.
What I've noticed, my own armchair observation of this situation, is that he uses those words when he wants things to be his version of events. If you suggest something that happened or tell your version of something and it doesn't mesh with what he wants the verdict of the situation to be, he'll use words like, well, let me be clear so you understand me.
Yeah, or I was misunderstood. I don't want to be misunderstood.
He says that just as many times, I think, as saying clear around when Hannah says something around him. Well, I don't want to be misunderstood, implying that she is misunderstanding him when she's actually just quoting him back.
Yes.
So it's interesting. So they go back and forth for a little bit. Chris challenges his hypocrisy around the religious aspect in him expecting her not to have sex.
Wait, that's later.
But then going back on that? I thought it was earlier on.
No. Well, that's later.
Oh, see, I got the part where he starts talking weirdly out of nowhere about Hannah straddling and mounting dudes. This was earlier on.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He starts mentioning...
Maybe I just didn't write that down.
Well, it was a really weird pair of words to use.
Are you before commercial 3?
Maybe. I don't think so.
Okay, so right before the third commercial. Sorry, guys. This was really hard to note take because we actually went back. I've watched this like 3 times now. It was really hard to note take and take in. So Chris Harrison, right before the third commercial, asks Luke, looking back, do you think you made any mistakes?
Mm-hmm.
And Luke looks at Chris and says, if I could go back, I wouldn't change a thing. And then Chris says, nothing? All right, well, we're going to stop right there and come back with Luke P, blah, 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 when we're back. So that was the first moment where he, to me, was the most honest. He was like, I wouldn't change anything.
Right.
And then they come back from commercial, and Chris Harrison says, let me ask this again. Then Luke says, well, let me just say this. Where I'm coming from, obviously, if I could go back, I'd change a lot. So this is where I would have paused if I were Chris and said, wait. Can you clear this up for me?
Yeah.
5 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, before we went to commercial break, you said you wouldn't change anything. Now we're back from commercial break, and you just said that you would change a lot. Can you help me understand which one you mean and how you got from that to that over the last 10 minutes?
Oh, man.
Not in an accusatory way. Not, you said this, now you're saying that. Can you help me understand how you got from here to here?
Luke would not stand a chance with you in the room at all.
I want to get in a room with him so badly.
So, and that I think is the one issue that I have with the way that Chris handled this, is that he did do a good job confronting Luke on a variety of topics.
Yeah, he did.
It's things like that where the show has given Luke the ability to kind of talk over what he had said before and sort of try to reiterate to shift the narrative based on people's reactions to it.
And it wasn't until Mike said something about it that they brought it up.
So I went back a little bit. The straddling thing was early on. That's why it took me so off guard, is that it was way early in the episode, and all of a sudden Luke is talking about Hannah straddling and mounting dudes.
Oh, yeah.
And this is when Chris calls him out. He says that, well, and that's not someone that you'd want to be around based on your faith, and what you want. And he's like, well, yeah, I said that. And then Chris challenges him and says, well, then later on you said that you'd be okay with it now that you have the understanding. And he challenges the hypocrisy of Luke going back and forth on what he said his faith meant to him, and they didn't readdress it at all. It was one quick second early on, and I really appreciated Chris saying, hey, man, you're saying 2 things around something that apparently is like the most intense thing you think about.
I just wish they would have poked that a little bit more.
Right.
So
back to...
Then we get into this rescue mission conversation, which was so interesting. So Luke says that day 1 coming to the Bachelorette, he says, I felt like I was on a rescue mission for Hannah. Now, Chris stops him because the whole audience is like, and you guys, when we were watching this was my reaction when he said that. So he said, rescue mission for Hannah. This was me. And then I look at Kyle, and Kyle's like,
Not a good choice of words to use.
Oh.
The audience just tightened up real bad after that.
So then Chris, this was one of Chris's great moments of the episode. He says, now when you say rescue her, to me, in my mind, that means she needed to be saved. This was an ultimate Chris Harrison as therapist moment.
Yeah.
Like, as therapist host.
It was a good
Then
framing.
Luke says, oh, okay, let me back up. He chuckles and says, I don't want to be misconstrued here. When I say rescue mission, I meant from them, meaning from the rest of the guys. Now, not better.
Not better.
Meaning she can't handle herself with the guys? Meaning
what exactly?
She cannot choose for herself?
So,
Guy?
I felt like that was a really interesting choice based on immediately before that, Chris had been addressing with him, hey, you seem like you've made some mistakes with the guys. Seems like there's some tension there with the guys. And Luke admits lying to the other Luke on camera. So now what he did has actually been affirmed by him earlier in the show. And
Which
then
he
says,
said he didn't do.
Right, so now he's going back on his lie that was a lie in the first place. It's like Inception of lies, like 5 layers deep. Somewhere Leonardo DiCaprio's stuck for all eternity.
In Luke's mind, oh my god, what a horrible place to be stuck.
Now Inception seems a lot scarier now. Anyway, but Luke had said he felt neglected and disrespected by the guys, and that's why there was a problem. Same thing as always. It's never what he does, it's someone else doing something to him, which makes him the victim. The guys were disrespectful and neglecting to him, which is why he felt like he had to be on the rescue mission that follows up a few seconds later.
Which makes no sense because he said from day one coming here, I felt like I was on a rescue mission. Not, I got to know the guys, I thought that they were all really mean, and then I felt like I needed to save Hannah.
What? And so
none of it makes sense. None.
Devin is
just
embodying
walks out on stage.
all of our feelings and just comes out of nowhere, sits down next to him, and just lays into Luke. And he says, this is the one quote that I wrote down from him, "You're the kind of guy who wants a woman he can control so he can feel better about himself." Boom. Devin swinging for the fences.
Yeah. Devin, there was one thing that he said that I didn't love because I don't love making things black and white, which is he says there's 2 types of men. One type that wants an independent woman and one type who wants to control a woman. And I think that, that's fine.
Extreme.
It's extreme, but at that point I'm being, super nitpicky. I think that, there's a lot of in between where, sometimes being too independent, and I'm using air quotes, can actually, it's not beneficial for any partnership.
Mm.
You need to be a complete person, but you also need to want to have a partner.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But he said that, is that the kind of woman you need to be in a glass case on a shelf to pull down when you need?
Right.
And then Luke, okay.
Devin leaves, right, at this point.
And this
Chris is like, thanks, man. You're not supposed to be up here right now, though. But thank you. Also leave, but thank you. Get off the stage.
So then Chris says, before we continue this, let me give you a chance to respond to Devin. Mm. And Luke makes a face that I can only describe as a snarl.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have ever seen a dog. And I'm not comparing Luke to an animal. This is what it looked like with my eyeballs. If you guys have ever seen a dog do the lip thing where they're showing their teeth.
But in a defensive way.
In a defensive, don't come fuck with me, I'm about to pounce you way. That's the face he made. I had to, you were taking a note and I rewound it so that you could see it.
Yeah, that was probably, honestly, unfortunately for him as a person, that was probably the closest thing we've seen to Luke showing real, honest, authentic, reactive emotions.
Yeah.
Like, that was a very small slip on his part from the very calm, collected persona he puts forward. And he was, whatever Devin, or however Devin phrased that to him, really got under his skin. Because Chris asks him, is that the kind of woman you want after Devin leaves? Just to give Luke a way of responding to what Devin said. And that's when Luke snapped at Chris that way. And I think that Devin got under his skin. He wasn't expecting to come out. This is probably the first time he's actually been blindsided, even though he blames Hannah for blindsiding him, like, constantly.
This makes no sense.
Something happened there. So then he takes a long
this was the
silence.
longest pause.
It was, probably the longest pause. And I didn't even write down what he said.
I did.
All I know is the audience started laughing at him.
This is what it is. This was a huge moment, and this is all over the internet now.
Oh, what a man is, yeah.
Yeah. He says, the last thing I ever want, and the last thing I ever want to do, is control women. I want a woman who will make decisions for herself, but I do believe that a man leads a woman in a relationship.
Not awesome, man. Not awesome. Also not true.
Also, if we needed any confirmation that Luke is a misogynist, we just got it.
Also, what does that mean?
It's a great fucking question.
Like, does that mean the guy makes all the decisions as to where to go get food? Or, like, what you do in your days off? Or is it literally writing a schedule down for your partner? It's confusing, and the open-endedness of that is worrisome for me.
So then Chris wraps it up basically by saying, this has been another fascinating chapter. Thank you for being here.
It has been, Chris.
You know, Chris is not a trained mental health professional. He's a great host of the show.
Yeah.
I would love to take a stab at an interview with Luke. I would really, really, really love that. I'd probably need to know that I was going to go out drinking afterwards or something.
I don't think
Actually, I probably wouldn't go drinking. I would go to the wrecking room afterwards and just break shit because I'd be so frustrated. But I would love to have a conversation with that man. I would.
Yeah, it just shows an overarching disrespect for women in that comment.
So, Nicole, I'm curious. We have a viewer, Nicole, who's with us live right now on YouTube, and Nicole says, from a biblical standpoint, I can see what he's saying. Can you explain that? And truly, like, not like can you explain, but like, I want to understand, because Kyle and I did not understand what he meant by that in any other way than misogyny. And if there is a different way to look at it, we want to do that, and we want to understand. So would you mind in the comments just explaining that?
Yeah, and we'll move forward until you do that. So, it's commercial break, then it's time to meet the men. Mike gets the most applause, as he should.
So the guys there are people we don't
down.
know. We have Ryan, Darren, and Brian, who I literally didn't recognize. Then we have Matt Donald, who I wish talked more. He's so cute. Old Matt Donald. Then Mateo, who
cares, bro?
I wanted to punch him in the face at one point. Cam. Then we start to recognize the guys. Cam, Devin, Dustin, Grant, Jonathan, John Paul Jones, Luke S. Dylan. My notes say Cillin. I was like, who is Cillin? Dylan, Connor S., who spoke up a lot at Men Tell All, Garrett, and Mike. And Luke is still on the couch, and all the guys are in the chairs.
So, Devin... he instantly gets the camera, and he's mean-mugging Luke. And Chris asks him, hey, man, why didn't you just fall on your sword and make friends with the guys? Why didn't you just apologize and try to smooth things over? Why did you have to be so contentious with the men? And Luke blames the men for not welcoming him. It's their fault. They weren't nice to me when I was lying to them and behind their backs and to Hannah about them. They weren't nice to me. It's their fault, right?
So just going back to this religious man walking thing. Nicole says from a biblical... Oh, okay. That is worrisome and typical behavior of Christianity. So Allison says, I still hear from my Christian couple friends that the man is the spiritual leader because the Bible talks about gender roles. I vehemently disagree, but from my personal understanding of God and Jesus. T. Rundy says, I agree, Nicole. There's a certain way some sects of Christianity believe a marriage and household should operate for best results. So here's my question. I understand completely being a person of faith and following certain guidelines for living.
Yeah.
I get that. We've talked about it before. So T. Rundy says it goes like this. God is the head overall, and then it goes to the man. Okay, so here's my question. I have two. And I don't mean these sarcastically. I truly would love for them to spark up discussion around this. Number one, if we followed everything the Bible said, nobody of faith would have tattoos or eat bacon or shrimp. Those are in Leviticus, right? So clearly, they're cherry picking certain things in the Bible. So if they're going to follow gender roles, if they're going to follow the sex before marriage thing, then why are they eating bacon and getting tattoos? That's my first question. And then my second question is, how does gender equality play into what the scripture says? Because taking into account when the Bible was written, whether you believe that God wrote it or man wrote it, almost doesn't matter.
It's been around a long time.
It's been around a really long time, right? So it's not like it was written in 2000 and like it hasn't been updated. It was written a really long time ago, regardless of who wrote it.
Right.
So now that we're in 2019 and we're like, hey, men and women are both humans. Let's treat them equally. They have the same rights. They get to choose how their household is set up. Why are we still going back to this definition that was written when we did need the man to be the strong leader because they were killing animals for food because they had the strength to go hunt?
Right.
Right? Like, it's just different now. So why are we... Those are my two questions. I don't understand.
I would say that the majority agrees with you, I think, worldwide. I think that the Bible is used in a lot of ways from the people that I know of faith as a guideline. Like, this is the basic set of, like, rules
like
to follow.
values.
Exactly. Like, don't be a dick, don't steal, be nice to your neighbor. Like, the basics, right? Which is good. Across the board, for the most part. Just, love thy neighbor. Like, the real simple
that's
basics.
That's the part I love about religion.
Absolutely. The community that follows the guidelines like that, with an open interpretation to how they apply to our culture, those are the people who aren't the issue. The people like Luke, who take it, what they want from it, literally, but not follow all of it, those are the people who I find to be inflexible around changes in our world. Be it societal changes, worldwide climate changes, things like that. People who choose to believe the literal interpretations of the Bible, the ones that they like, and not the ones they don't like, tend to be inflexible in people in general. So I think that's the difference there, is that some people take it as guidelines to living a life that is healthy and in line with spirituality, and then some people use it as a way of getting what they want.
Yes, which Hannah actually talks about
right.
on the show.
Hannah does it amazing, better than I could, so we want to get to that.
So anyway, I hope that anybody watching this, I would love to actually understand if you're somebody who is somebody of faith, and it just doesn't seem logical to say, well, I follow this part of it verbatim, but then, oh, this other chapter, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that. So if you do, tell me, please, because I think this is a great opportunity to have a conversation about it.
Absolutely. So let's get into what the guys say to Luke. We wrote down, painstakingly, the quotes from Mike because it was probably the most articulate and well thought out attack, really, on Luke of the entire evening.
Yeah.
And it's on Rachel's phone, not mine, so I'll let you...
So Luke says that because he got the first impression rose, that there was a target put on his back. And
I mean, yeah.
Mike says, I love Mike.
Who doesn't?
He says, you said that for every reason you have a target on your back. We didn't place that target. You put the target on yourself. I feel like we gave you a clear slate, just like we gave each other a clear slate. He just went completely out of his lane, so to say.
That was a good burn.
But then you continued to do stupid crap. I feel that Luke hasn't learned a thing whatsoever. And then he starts talking to him. I think that you are a narcissistic, cancerous...
Cantankerous. Mike used the best vocabulary word I've heard in the entirety of the Bachelor franchise. Cantankerous.
What does that mean?
Let's look it up while you keep talking.
Nope, it's bringing up something else.
Nope, hold on. Cantankerous. It's an amazing word.
Oh, I got it. Disagreeable to deal with, contentious and peevish.
Yup.
An argumentative man.
Amazing. Cantankerous used on the Bachelor franchise in its accurate form. Amazing.
Okay. So I think that you are a narcissistic, cantankerous, new word of the day, misogynistic. I think that your future wife is going to be a prisoner of you if you don't know how to change. We were coming from a position of care, and we wanted to say, hey, there might be some things you may want to change up, and you never did. And you still show tonight that you haven't changed.
Boom! Best verbal takedown of the night, maybe show history. It was amazing. And I'd like to address the comment section really quickly. Nicole, if that was a truly triggering experience for you, please reach out. We're more than welcome to talk you through.
Yeah, and Jenna in the chat says, I'm a person of faith and do not agree with Luke at all and want to punch him. Jenna, I think that your sentiment is shared by many people of faith.
Yes.
It's really frustrating to have somebody try to be a quote-unquote representative of, and look, we don't think that, we said this last week, I think, we don't think that one person represents an entire organization.
No.
Ever.
Absolutely.
Right? One employee of Coca-Cola does not represent the values of Coca-Cola. Just like one person who identifies as being a Christian does not represent Christianity.
No.
Or Buddhism or Judaism or anything.
I will say a great interpretation and addressing of this issue and the situation was done by Ben Higgins on the most recent episode, or the one before this, on what's it called?
It's called The Almost Famous Podcast.
The Almost Famous Podcast.
If you fast forward, it's the last 20 minutes of last week's episode. Yeah,
Ben Higgins is a,
man of faith.
Man of faith. He's Christian, believes very strongly in that. And the way that he goes about addressing the way Luke uses his faith on the show is something that's really amazing. Good. And as someone who did not grow up in faith, nor was a very religious person, hearing someone come from that side of religion is actually very refreshing. I learned a lot about how other Christians view other Christians in a lot of circumstances, and I thought that it was really, really well done. So if you want to check that out, go ahead and listen to that episode of the podcast. And back to it. So Mike does a great job.
Jonathan follows up, saying,
oh, yeah.
We all have our own faiths. I'm a man of faith, too. We all go about it in our own way, but to project that faith onto someone else isn't the right way to do it.
Yeah. I love that. That was a great addressing of it as well from a fellow Christian person. Hey, we have the same thoughts. And then you started saying all that crazy shit. And that's not what we are supposed to be doing here.
I also didn't even know that Jonathan was religious. I was like, wow, we did not learn anything about this man.
Well, and it sounds like he's an evangelical Christian also.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Because he said we bonded over our similar.
So the guys all kind of get one or two shots in. Garrett says something. Grant, I didn't write down what he said, but Grant says more than what he said in the entire season put together, and it was amazing. He just tears into Luke, and I was like, Grant is saying something. It makes me so happy. I don't know why I like him so much, but I do.
I don't know why you do either, honestly. He's kind of skeezy to me. But,
whatever.
I guess I spent so much time living in Orange County that,
he's
Grant to me is, the quintessential unemployed surfer dude, and it just,
Fair enough.
I mean, he's fine. There's nothing wrong with Grant. He just
Luke
is
S.
not my cup of tea.
Luke S. takes 1 second and he says, right reasons. Thank you for that, Luke S. Constantly repping the show without your knowledge, and it's really, really appreciated. Mateo opens his dumb mouth to say something to support Luke P. Mateo, I think you're stupid. Moving on.
Well, wait.
Mateo backed up Luke and
That was
said
that.
that
Oh,
he's...
yeah.
Mateo said
Okay.
some stupid shit. The one time he gets to talk on camera, he said some stupid things.
He basically said that, like, Luke has endured enough already, and, like, I don't know. It was really, yeah. So, then Connor S. follows it up with saying that they will accept Luke's apology when they start seeing his behavior change.
Yeah. Luke says that he's sorry for how things worked out, even though earlier he said he wouldn't do anything different. So he's not sorry. By that definition, he's lying again in the same episode that he's in, within minutes of each other.
Yeah.
It's kind of par for the course.
Yep. So then Luke leaves the stage. He's still there at this point. And we switch to John Paul Jones. And this...
Doesn't really matter. It's more like fan service. Like, look how crazy he is. Also, someone now gets to cut his hair, which, by the way, dangerous. Dangerous precedent to set. Because I bet you a lot of people are going to be doing that to him, and it's going to get really weird really quickly. And I fear for John Paul Jones' personal safety, I would get a new security system so no fans break into your house and try to cut your hair off when you're sleeping.
Yeah.
Super weird, right?
It was bizarre. I'm excited to see him in Paradise. I didn't feel like the hot seat was necessary.
Why'd he throw nuggets? Who cares?
It just didn't.
Was one big ad for chicken nuggets? Not even branded.
Honestly, I feel like the show was like, fuck, this is really heavy with
We
Luke.
need to lighten
like,
it up.
We need some lightness. And they were like, who is funny?
Yeah.
Oh, John Paul, like, it, I don't know. It didn't feel, whatever. Then we go to commercial, and it's Mike's hot seat. He is just the sweetest, most gracious, articulate, loving human. He talks about that, he would like closure, but he wants to see how she's doing.
Yeah.
And she wants her to know that she's still fine.
He wants to know what the butt was around him. He's like, we were really getting close. I want to notice that, which is healthy. It's wanting to know from someone you had a mutual break, or, not a mutual breakup, but an understanding breakup with, wanting that bit of closure. This is the healthy kind of wanting closure.
Yeah.
Because he's not demanding it. He's aware that he wants it, may not get it. And he is demonstrating that he is open to whatever it is, which is very important here.
And Lucy in the comments right now, I agree with you. Lucy says they should have played his clips as he kept lying. He lied about what he said on the show. Chris could have been like, roll the tape! And yeah, I agree.
That would have been some good fan service.
From what I understand, I don't watch the Real Housewives shows, but from what I understand, that's what they actually do on that show. And I would have liked that in this situation. I don't want to set it as a precedent necessarily for The Bachelor because it's not that type of show.
Right.
But in this type of a situation where he is like pathologically lying to manipulate people's feelings, I think that would have been incredibly helpful. So I agree with you.
Either that or keep Demi in that spy van like the beginning of the season for the entire season. Have like Detective Demi running in and out, like pointing out lies.
So then
I would watch that.
I would watch that. Right before we go to commercial break, Chris Harrison announces that Ben Higgins is hosting a Bachelor tour show called Bachelor Live on Stage.
I forgot that happened until now. Like, that could have been a fever dream and I wasn't aware of it, but...
No.
What? So, it's The Bachelor done on stage. So is it like speed dating and he's Chris Harrison? I'm confused.
Yes, so he's Chris Harrison, and I went to the website to look it up. So you
Does
can
anybody
either
want to go to this?
you can either attend as like an audience member, or you can apply to be a contestant for that day. And they do basically like an entire season of The Bachelor, or Bachelorette, I'm guessing, on stage during the show. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't end in an engagement. It probably ends in a date or something.
You think there's fantasies? don't know.
I don't know, but they are coming to New York.
Are they gonna like swap out backgrounds? Now we're in Greece. Now we're in Napa.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I have so many questions around this. What do you guys think? If you are here with us on YouTube, can you let us know in the comments? What do you think about this Bachelor Live on Stage? And if you're listening to it as a podcast, write us on Instagram, tag us, let us know. Also, don't forget, you guys, if you are listening on or watching on YouTube, to hit the thumbs up button. It really helps other people find this video. And additionally, it makes us feel really happy.
Princess Shawnee, no, they did not. Jed is still in the final 3, so we do not know anything about that. However, Chris did say that there will be full transparency and conversation around the Jed situation with his girlfriend. So we'll have to find that out later on in the season, but that will be directly addressed. So hopefully we can all get to the end of it. Jenna, I agree. I think the live on stage thing is stupid. And yes, Lucy, Demi in a van, I would watch that spy show. All right. So it's time for Hannah to come out. And
she looks amazing.
Does look amazing.
Amazing.
Yeah, she looks really good.
And she says that it's really surreal to see everybody.
As I'm sure it is. So, Chris, she says she's grateful to the men for sticking it out and coming back to see her and spending the time. And then Chris prompts her, what moments stuck out to you when you've been watching it back? And she just goes directly for what we're all thinking, just goes directly for Luke. Luke is still in the audience. He has not left yet. He leaves after this, as someone who's afraid of confrontation would do.
Yeah, Chris says he had to catch a flight, but
I took that to be Chris.
I thought it was a joke.
Yeah, he's like, he had to catch a flight.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
I digress.
Hannah says, I have to back it up from the very beginning, my relationship with Luke. Yep. She talks about how her feelings for Luke were very real. She would not ever deny that. It is the closest thing that she ever felt to love at first sight.
Yes.
But that part of that, this was like unbelievably aware.
Before we get into that, I'm so impressed at how Hannah handles this situation. She clearly has been doing a lot of work around herself.
Yeah.
She's been watching the show back, because keep in mind, now they're as up to date as we are at the filming. So they, right? Like, because the contestants who are on, she's now seen it up to this point of the filming of Mental All.
I don't know the date that they filmed Mental All.
But they've seen the show as far as we have up to this point.
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
So Hannah's been able to see the real side of Luke lying to everybody up to this point. So now
she got out of the vacuum.
She's out of the vacuum. I think she handles herself so well. You've got a lot more of the direct quotes written down. It's really, really amazing, though, and I'm super proud of the way she handles herself.
Yeah, totally. What just happened to my... There we go. Okay, sorry guys, I clicked off my note on accident because I got really fat thumbs.
I can start with this. So she talks about how being with Luke was the closest thing she's ever felt to love at first sight, how they did have that common bond around religion at the very beginning, but then she said she realized that a lot of her feelings with Luke were based around her fears of not being good enough to be the Bachelorette. I paused the show, my mind exploded. That is the most self-aware thing that I've ever heard anyone who was a lead in the show say in all of the 5 seasons I've seen.
Yeah. So she said that it was from her being, part of it was from her being insecure. She said that she learned a lot from the relationship with him, that she deserved a lot more than what she put up with. And Chris then asks Luke, do you have thoughts? Blah, blah, blah. And Luke apologizes to her that he made the process difficult and then says thank you and says that he learned how important it is to self-reflect and open up. That's all I have.
He said, you actually taught me something. Now, normally that phrase would be fine, but in this case, after so many repeated disrespectful actions and words towards Hannah, I took that to be very literal. Oh, you actually taught me something.
Oh, interesting.
I took that in a patronizing way.
So they filmed Mental All about 2 weeks ago, our comment section is saying.
Well, that's good. Thanks, comments.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So Hannah says, I appreciate those words.
She didn't buy it at all.
You said that you learned from this, and I do hope that you did, but I think that there's a lot of fruit that needs to be grown from you. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. And this is when Chris Harrison mentions faith and religion and how they got into a conversation on a deeper level than they have on any other season.
Yeah.
And this is
the verbatim
quote from Hannah.
It took me so long to write this out this morning as I was rewatching it and typing this verbatim thing out because she uses when you talk, it's hard to hit like your grammar like spot on, but man, it is a doozy to write out this run-on sentence.
It was one of our first conversations, and I wanted a man of God who had those same values, but that was almost weaponized against me. I was, by the end, threatened by the shared faith that we had, and unfortunately, the same people that believe what I do, a lot of times...
Same people that believe what I do that a lot.
Sometimes, using the same words and the same things that we believe to call out specific things and poke. And so the basis of what I believe is love and loving others and understanding and not shaming. And his love, meaning Luke's, was contingent on if I did things that he wanted me to do as he saw a wife should do, not unconditional love.
Boom.
She was
Hannah.
So done with it. She then addresses the slut shaming.
Yeah.
She addresses the fantasy suites.
She addresses the entire room, too. It's great.
It was awesome. And this brings up a really interesting conversation around people's sex lives. So...
It does.
Well, what for you, what does it bring up?
Well, I mean... it's the danger, I think, of going on a show with which you're viewed by millions and millions of people, because then you have millions and millions of personal perceptions around sex projected towards you. I think it highlights the damage of a minimalistic sex education program in our country, because people are not fully informed, and it does boil down to a lot of personal perception, and the amount of religious influence on people's understanding of sex. It shows how unhealthy it can be. I'm not saying that it's bad in general. I'm saying that it can be bad, especially when 4 million people are calling you a slut for doing what you personally want to do. That's the problem, I find. I had one more thing, and I forgot what it was.
It makes me very sad that there are people in the world who would say that by Hannah having sex with Peter... she is somehow a slut. First of all, anyone can have sex with as many people as they want to. That can be 0, that can be 1, that could be 1 million if you are safe and honest.
And everyone's consenting in the right age and all the good stuff.
Right.
All the pieces need to be there.
All the laws that we have in place need to be followed, and consent needs to be there.
Yeah.
The fact that people are going out of their way to, as Hannah said, give her like a scarlet letter.
Oh, yeah. That was telling. She's been told that a lot if she's using that phrasing.
It's so wrong.
Yeah.
And I love what you said, Kyle, about sex ed, because a lot of times people's criticism around other people's sex lives is a lack of education in their own life.
Yeah.
Meaning that there are assumptions being made because they just don't know. And if we all had access to actual sex education, not abstinence-only sex ed, not most of sex ed, which is don't do this, don't get pregnant, don't get an STD, don't do that, but how about how to ask for consent? What actually is pleasurable? What you do when you do decide to have sex, even if you're waiting until marriage.
Why wearing 2 condoms isn't double the safety.
Right.
That's an important thing to know.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know that. It's weird.
Yes. And she said to Luke, Hallie, thank you for reminding me of this.
Yes.
She says that fantasy suites are not just for sex, but Luke wouldn't know that because he didn't have one. Well, I loved this comment because most of Bachelor Nation have gone on record saying that most of the time they have not used it for sex.
Oh, they're exhausted. They want to make sure everyone's on the right page, like off camera, everything else. And she even talks about how Luke P seems obsessed with her sex life and sex in general, and he's always talking about.
I think he is obsessed with sex.
Well, of course, because he went all abstinence, which, as anyone knows, is not a great way of addressing anything. How did prohibition work out? Pretty terribly.
Yeah.
So
extremes.
Mike
typically don't work.
Extremes typically don't work. Mike offers support like an amazing gentleman. I didn't write down what he said, but she finishes her slut-shaming thing, and he's like, yeah, everyone pay attention to what she's saying because that's the truth. And this is her personal truth, so we all have to respect. That's amazing.
Yep.
We are here for you. We see you. We hear you. We support you.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, come on. Mike, you're amazing.
So Garrett says that he was actually pretty upset with Hannah when he left because he felt as though she picked Luke over him, which in that moment she did. He says, but now watching back, I get it more, and I'm sorry.
He sees his actions.
He says, I'm wondering if we could have done anything differently to help you see what was going on.
That was so amazing.
I really liked this question because it was very clear that he watched his actions back and realized that they were not effective.
Yeah.
So in him asking this, to me, it was like, hey, was this just you needed it to figure it out in your own time, which is what it was. And she explains that.
Yep.
Or he's like, could I have done something different? Like, had I approached this differently, could I have saved you from this length of time?
Yep.
And Hannah talks about how she needed to hear it and see it and experience it for herself. And
this led into, I think, the second best thing that she said the entire night, which was her talking about she needed to go through it and experience it, and then she pauses for a second, and I got excited watching on the couch because I was like, is she going to say what I think she's about to say?
Yeah.
And then she does. She's like, I think a lot of women... So she basically said that this was an abusive relationship without actually using the word abuse, because she says a lot of
toxic,
women... Toxic. A lot of women out there are dealing with a very similar situation. And maybe me having to go through it the way that I did will help them see it in their own relationships, because I couldn't see it until I did. And hopefully seeing me work through it on my own, despite all of your attempts to help, addressing Garrett's offer, like, could we have done more? Because I did the struggle, hopefully other women who are in similar situations can see what's happening. And that, to me, is probably the most, of all of her comments, the most self-aware, like, this needed to happen. I think a lot of people are struggling in similar relationships, and I thought it was pretty amazing. Her moment there saying that. And then she also addresses Mike really quickly. Luke has left at this point because he's a coward and can't stand criticism. And he's on a flight to go fuck himself, I hope. Well, no, he can't because his choices. Anyway,
that was a bad joke.
Hannah thanks Mike. She recognizes how much he cares and how important he was on the show. And then she uses some very interesting words, which maybe I'm just hoping that he's going to be selected as Bachelor. I don't know.
Mike?
Yeah, because she says, I'm always going to be rooting for you, and I'm always going to be your fan. And I was like, why would you use those specific words? I find that very interesting. I'm just saying.
I really... Hashtag Mike for Bachelor.
Why would you say to anyone if you're rooting for them or you're going to be a fan? Like, we can be friends. I don't know. It's a little interesting choice of words there. That's all.
So, to close out the night, Hannah gives a closing address to Bachelor Nation.
Yep.
And I want to talk about this for a minute because Loved by You just mentioned something. You said, I hate that she felt like she had to apologize to us. And I want to go through this together and kind of unpack this. So she says, I just want to say, Bachelor Nation, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for this whole thing with Luke and him being on our televisions for so long, way longer than any of us desired. It's my fault. A lot his, but I did it. I was there. I'm sorry. I'm tired of talking about him. Chris, are you tired of talking about him? And he says...
Chris goes, amen.
And then she looks at the guys. Are you all tired of talking about him?
The guys are like, yeah.
And she says, the Luke P. show is canceled. We will not renew the season. Again, my apologies, and God bless the United States of America. Roll Tide.
So, I feel like she was honoring the way that she started the show out by being on Colton's season and having a really hard time, like, giving a speech or saying words. And she addressed her overly apologetic, people-pleasing background. I think this whole thing was pretty self-aware. She's like, I used to apologize too much. I used to have a hard time, like, making a speech. So I'm going to do both of those things, but in my own way, where it's like, hey, this has sucked for all of us. I am now fully aware of how bad it looked by watching it back. Let's move forward collectively, because holy shit, that sucked for all of us. Sorry for my part, but also I struggled, so I guess we're all kind of coming out of this on the same page. That's the way I took it, whereas more of her like, let's acknowledge it, let's move on. That was crazy. We still have a show to do.
I agree. So I did not take her apology as, this was all my fault, I'm so sorry, I did bad, I'll do better next time.
Yeah, there's a difference there.
She acknowledged that most of it is him. Like, a lot of it was him. But I think what she was taking responsibility for is that week after week, she chose to keep him around to figure it out for her. Yeah. And I don't think that she's apologizing for her doing that. I think she's apologizing for the fact that everybody watching the show had to watch the Luke P show because of her choice of figuring it out for herself.
Right.
I took it to be she's apologizing for how it affected other people, not that she didn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree. I think that she was just acknowledging the fact that her time as the lead on the show was very different from our viewing time.
Yeah.
And I think that she
like
was acknowledging the amount of time the watchers, the viewers, the fans had to endure with Luke's bullshit, whereas from her perspective, the bullshit was minimal until it got out of hand and then had to be addressed like 2 or 3 times. But I think that she didn't know how bad it was until she watched it back, and that was the point of this, is being like, that was really bad for now everyone, that he keeps coming back on my version of the show, and then also he's been on your version of the show for a long time. Let's group acknowledge this sucks. And my bad for my part. I'm sorry, and let's move this. Like,
let's put it behind us. I don't want to focus on it anymore.
Yeah, I think that she did a good job. I don't think that was,
like a guilt-ridden apology.
No. I think that she genuinely wanted to do that for the betterment of the rest of the season.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this happened. I was involved.
Right.
For my part in having him on your screens, I apologize.
Right.
Also, let's move on. Trista says, did anyone find it odd that Chris never asked Hannah if she's happy now, like as a teaser for the finale? So I thought about that, Trista. It's funny you ask that. He did the same thing with Colton. He did not ask that. And I've noticed that in their press tours, they're not asking that either. So they used to.
Yeah.
Whenever they went on any show, like, well, are you happy now? Can you tell? And they're like, I'm very happy now. And
I remember that even with Becca's, they did that on Kimmel. He's like, so, are you, like, happy with whatever? And she's like, I'm happy, but I can't tell you, Jimmy.
Yeah, I think that because the seasons are so twisty now, for whatever reason, which will be interesting to see if that happens again next time.
More secretive, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that they're being a little more, like, closeted around the ending and just not wanting to give anything away. Yeah, so we'll see.
Look at the bright side. The most drama we have waiting for us is whether or not Jed has a girlfriend. That's kind of nice. I mean, like, really, that's...
We'll see.
What? Okay, if she's still waiting, that's the drama that we're all... But whatever, we'll see how it works out.
Can I just say how happy I am that we did not have to talk about Jed this week?
Yeah.
Because we're going to have to talk about him a lot next week.
Hopefully he puts on a different colored suit for the next one. I just didn't like the brown.
No.
It's my own thing.
I didn't like the brown
I just wouldn't pick a brown suit.
I
know he's going for, like, the country western scenario, but, like, come on.
I did not care for it.
Clean it up. I'm just checking out the comments, because then we get a teaser of what's coming up, and it's not,
so,
whatever.
Love by You says that the Luke fans were coming out last night heavily on Hannah. Interesting.
That's not surprising. I mean...
So they were clinging to the fact that Luke was bullied.
By who?
Oh, my God.
Here's the thing. You can't be on the playground and go shove somebody and then be sad when they hit you back.
You guys, do us a favor. Share the link to this podcast. Share the link to this video. When you see people saying things or defending Luke, just share this video. Let this psychological explanation of things hopefully speak to these people. Like, just share the video. Just drop the link. Let's make our show, let's make this community talk over the people who are doing this to Hannah. Let's support Hannah and all cheer Hannah on, and just share this. You don't have to say anything mean. Just drop the link and be like, watch this.
Watch this.
Hashtag the right reasons.
And Lucy, what you're talking about, that's projection. They are projecting their own personal stuff onto Hannah. It's like when someone goes around and calls all of their political opponents pedophiles, but turns out they're the one who's a pedophile.
Right.
You know? And that's like, sorry to be a little on the nose about it, but that's what the fans are doing on social media, because it's a lot easier to be an armchair keyboard warrior than to actually stand down and say something like you are in the chat right now, which is why it's so amazing to have 72 people on live with us right now. So, and that's something else I want to address, is that it can be really disheartening to watch people that you care about who have actually struggled with real things like Hannah in this situation, being gaslit, emotionally manipulated, being attacked on social media. It can be very disheartening. What I would like to remind you of in this is words from Mr. Rogers himself. In time there is tragedy, look for the people doing good. So this is not a tragedy, so to speak, but there are 70-something people on live with us right now who probably are in the similar mindset as we are.
Doing good. So
we're here doing good, and then the millions of people out there who want to be trash people and call Hannah names and say that she's narcissistic when they're defending someone who is an emotionally abusive narcissist. You're the ones doing the good. So go ahead and share this. Put the word out.
And thank you guys for being here. Also, Love by you bring up something really important. Like, how dare you be a part of the bullying? She's allowed to be mad. Yes.
Yeah.
We are allowed, all of us, Kyle, me, you, we are all allowed to react and respond to people. We are all allowed to do that. Fifi says, I think people really need to understand the difference between bullying and someone being absolutely toxic to not only Hannah, to herself, but the rest of the men.
Yes, Fifi.
Spot on the nose.
And Jenna, you have total permission from us to drop this on Luke's Instagram page.
Oh my God.
In fact, all of you do it.
Please.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, and we're behind you guys. Like, 100%.
We got
it's
you.
not that, like I said, I want to have a conversation with Luke.
Yeah.
I don't want to punch him in the face or say, I mean, maybe like a little, but like I wouldn't actually do that. I want to hear and understand how he thinks, because he contradicted himself again multiple times within the confines of Men Tell All.
Of one episode.
I want to understand if he knows that that's what's happening. Because part of me is like, does he not hear that? Is he so brainwashed by something, I don't know what, that he doesn't realize this stuff? So anyway, drop the links everywhere.
Anyway.
Thank you guys for being here with us.
Yep.
We are so excited. So next week is a 2-night finale. So what does that mean? It means that we will be doing one show a day later.
Wednesday.
So Wednesday at 11 a.m., we will be going live for Hannah's finale. We'll be covering the finale part 1, the finale part 2, and after the final rose, all in one episode.
We might need like some champagne for that episode.
In the morning.
I think 11 o'clock. Whatever. It's fine.
And thank you guys again. Like, I know I'm going to say this a lot, but you are the reason why this show can keep going. And you are the reason why, in the moments of why is this on television, that we don't just turn it off, because these conversations are so important to us, but it would not be a conversation without you guys listening and watching and being in the comments and shooting us DMs and tagging us on Instagram or sharing the link on Twitter, Reddit, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just so grateful for your support and love around us bringing this viewpoint towards The Bachelor.
Absolutely. Nicole, you're very welcome. Feel free to reach out as always. If everyone on live can drop a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe to the show
or
and
watching
our channel.
Recording.
Or if you're listening to the recording or watching the recording or listening to the podcast, throw us a rating, throw us a review. We're super thankful and super happy. We're trending, we're growing every single episode. We're getting higher ranked, more downloads, more subscriptions, and it's being powered by you, the fans watching right now. So thank you again. Make sure you subscribe, share it with your friends. That's all I got. End of episode.
Yeah, let's take over Bachelor social media, okay? Let's teach them what bullying actually is, which is not what Hannah's doing. Go, Hannah. We love you, Hannah. We support you no matter what decision you make next week. And we will see you guys next week for the finale. Make sure you're subscribed so you get the notification on Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.